Hi, Enthusiastic Steve here. And despite modern day technologies and advances, as a hobbyist there are still many radio signals out there that us as amateurs or hobbyists, shortwave listeners, can still receive. I keep hearing debates on the internet about is it worth still buying an analog scanner? Everything's gone digital, we can't hear anything anymore. Well, it's a bit of a myth really. There's no reason now, even as a hobbyist, that we cannot still pick up, well, there's many analog signals still out there, still active, and the digital signals are still now accessible by the hobbyist for very little cost. You don't need to go out and spend thousands of pounds on the latest base scanners that the major manufacturers are making. Very good that they are, and they do the job. But there are many other ways you can actually pick up these signals and open up the world of the radio hobbyist and shortwave listening and further fields across the different bands at a much lower price. In this video I'm going to show you the SDR Play RSP1A and how I use it with third-party software to extend my radio listening, and it's mind-blowing some of the information that you can pick up as a home user. It's quite scary actually, so enjoy the video. We all have different routes of how we started out with radio, and mine was way back in the 1970s. I started as a shortwave listener, bought myself a Vega. Here it is here, not the actual one, I bought another one since. But this big old beast, Ukrainian, Russian type built radio, weighs a ton. It's like a house brick. But it got me into shortwave listening. Covers all the shortwave bands. Not sideband, unfortunately, it was just AM. But listening to the broadcast stations and some other strange signals that you could pick up at the time, I found it absolutely fascinating. From that, I moved on. I managed to get myself one of the old realistic communications receivers. I think it was a 301 or 302, long wire down the garden, and away I went, and the hobby grew from there. As technology's changed, of course, the radio's got smaller, better. This little Eaton portable radio, what a fantastic little bit of kit. It's portable, you can connect it up to like a little indoor antenna or a big wire antenna outside, and it covers all the shortwave bands, from about just above 0 up to 30 megs, sideband as well. And it's great on the amateur bands. You can really pick up some really good signals, plus all the aeronautical HF, Maritime, etc., and broadcast stations. From shortwave, of course, I then ventured into the world of VHF and UHF, and this is a JAERO SX200 scanner, for those who can remember them. Lights up with a little blue display, 16 memories, wow, at a scan rate of about a couple of channels a second. Very slow, but it did the job. AM, FM, you could listen to the aircraft, you could listen to the Marine band, you could listen to the police in the days gone back. Absolutely fantastic. And then came the handheld radios. Remember there was a Fairmate 1000 and 2000, also made by AOR. It's the radio here on the right hand side. Little handheld scanner. Absolutely beautiful little bit of kit. It was so nice to hold in the hand. Batteries lasted forever. And these can give you a range of, I think it was the 2000, went from HF all the way up to VHF and UHF. Very good little radios indeed, solid and sturdy. Then I got the Alinco, the old little DJ X3, still available, but it's very underrated. This is one of the radios that first came out. If you notice, there's no keypad on it. Put a lot of people off buying it, but it's all done by a couple of key presses and turning the control knob, and it fits nicely in the hand. It's not bad audio. It's got a nice little. It's got stereo output as well for the FM band, for the broadcast band. Very underrated little radios these. They're quite sensitive, and what I do like about these are they go up to the 200 megs thing, whereas a lot of modern day handheld scanners, they stop around about 174 megs, and there is still a lot of analog activity up there above 170 to 200 megs. So this is a very useful little radio to actually use. And now coming up to a little bit more modern, we've got the Uniden UBC125XLT, a nice little handheld. Got it here sat in a little Perspex stand on my desk. Quick search, very clear display, just nice little radio to use, very sensitive. And no Shack would be complete without a Radio Shack old scanner there sat on my inside my excuse the wires. I got the wires off at the moment because a few thunderstorms about. But the old base scanner, 200 channel direct. It was good radio in its time and still is. I mean, it's a few years old now, but it does me well. Now, bringing it right up to a modern spec, we're looking at the digital world. Well, this is a DMR radio. It's made by Connect Systems, BFDX in Los Angeles. And it's probably a clone of many other types of DMR radios that are out there at the moment. But this one has got a nice little scan function on it. Not only can you program in DMR amateur radio and transmit, you can actually set it onto a scan mode and it will go away and find any digital a majority of the digital channels. It will pick out the color codes and talk group numbers automatically, lock onto it, and then you can just actually add it into the memory. So it's a nice little scanner for digital radio, and that was about £90. So it was a very cheap digital scanner. It's been out for about 3 years now. Still made by the Connect Systems in America. If you're interested in looking up their website, but it is a very cheap way of getting digital reception. And then finally, and here we are today, the SDR Play, a little black plastic box, RSP1A. It's their budget end. I don't necessarily like to say budget end because they all are very good little SDR receivers. But this is the lowest price one, around about £99, can be bought cheaper. And it's got a coverage of from just above 0 up to 2 gigahertz. Absolutely fantastic little bit of kit. I was amazed by it. I've used dongles in the past, these little RTL dongles, and yes, they work. And for the price, they work very well. But I wanted to try something a little bit better, so I invested in one of these little SDR plays. And so far, I've not looked back. They are amazing little bits of equipment. The SDR Play RSP1A little SDR receiver can be used with many types of software. I choose to use the SDRUNO, the SDRUNO program, and this is what you can see running in front of you at the moment. Very nice little program. It's free to download. There are other versions out there as well you can use. But this one I find for me works. Loads of data on the screen. It looks confusing at first, but to believe me, it's within 10 minutes you're navigating your way around it, and it works an absolute gem. There are so much things you can do with this. Now, I've not got this. This is not the latest version. The very new version is out now and has got extra add-ons as well. So this is the previous version. But this previous version is an advancement on older versions. Now on the screen here on the left hand side, you've got memory banks and you've got scanning functions now. So not only is this like a manual tuner where you can actually see a band scope and you can see a good chunk of the spectrum, the radio spectrum that you're looking at, and you can manually move the mouse and pointer around and click straight on a signal as it appears. You see a signal then appear on the left hand side there. Well, with the mouse you can just put the pointer straight onto that and bang, you're there. You receive whatever it is coming through. So it's a good visual display. But now there is a scanner function built in, which means you can actually program a scanner range over on the left hand side, and you can then set the equipment off to just go and it'll scan up and down, and it will store automatically like a normal scanner into the memory bank chosen the frequencies it picks up. Now if you're getting birdies or just tones or sounds which you don't need, you've then got the option just to go down and tick the box no, and it won't scan those the next time round. So you can a little bit of playing around with it at the beginning, but you can scan the frequency range. It will go round and round and round. You sit there with it for 10 minutes. You can pick out all the tone burst and ones you don't want, and then it'll just continue going on and on, looking for any signals that pop up, and it works really well. There's no there's a whole list of memory, a big memory in it. Well, depending the memory's down to the size of your computer really, but the memory banks, you can have them for anything you wish. Now I've just zoomed in a little bit closer onto the actual memory panel itself, and as you can see at the moment I'm scanning the airband, and there are airband frequencies in there, and I've written in a few of those if I knew what they were: Air Traffic Services, London, Farnborough, London Control, and I can set that as a scan, and it will go away and scan the whole band, stopping on those. And you can tell it to stop for 1 second, 4 seconds, and then continue on, or you can tell it to, as soon as the carrier's lost, to continue scanning. And for all those people out there, there's loads of people at the moment saying Analogue is dead, there's nothing on it. Well, just look at this column on my left hand side here. You will see I've got 2 meter amateur, 406 UHF frequency, 446, 4 meters, 70 SEMS. We go on down. We've got Coast Guard type ops. We've got marine band. We've got military aircraft. We've got UHF, more UHF, VHF. They are all, and so the aircraft bands as well. They are all analog channels, and I've got 20, 30, 40 memories saved in most of those. So analog is far from dead. I am fortunate because I live near the coast, so I got all the advantages of listening to the marine band traffic, which can be very busy. And I'm 70 miles away from Heathrow, so there's a lot of aircraft traffic as well flying overhead. But most of the UK has aircraft traffic as well, and that's still analog. So analog is far from dead. So analog is far from dead. Full stop. Okay, so many people read over and over again about it, but analog is far from dead. I've got probably over 200, maybe 250 stations in my memory banks, just local, that I can actually pick up still on analog mode. So yeah, get out there, turn the radios on, have a look around. You will find stuff really interesting. Now this is where it blew my mind. Okay. Since putting my radio equipment into the new area in my little shack and introducing my computer, that's allowed me to get the SDRplay, link it up to my computer. This has now allowed me to opt into the downloading third-party software for use with the SDRplay. The SDRplay box is fantastic on its own as a standalone receiver, but it's like getting a car and then you fit a tow bar, which means you can then tow a caravan and go on holiday. You could put, if you had a car and you could put a snowplow attachment on the front, you could plough snow. So your car has multiple uses. You imagine putting wings on a car and your car can fly. Or you can put in a big inflatable ring around it. You can use it as a boat. Well, that's kind of what you're doing with SDRplay. SDRplay has got so many third-party software options for you to use. It's mind-blowing. It opens up the world to what you can hear. And some of these things you can hear are really, you shouldn't be hearing them, but even as a home hobbyist, you can receive these things. I'll give you an example. The first one I want to talk to you about is POCSAG, POCSAG, or Post Office Code Standardization Advisory Group. Now, you've probably, as a scanner user or tuning around the radio bands, you've actually come across these raspy noises. Absolute pain in the backside because they are strong signals. Look at that signal meter. When that comes up on the screen in a minute and a blip, you're going over into the red, plus 10, plus 20 dB. And if you're trying to use your scanner, or sometimes 2 meter band, you'll get obliterated by these strong signals. They are basically, say, Post Office Code Standardization Advisory Group codes. And what they are, they're like pager details. There you go, look, plus 20 dB. And as far as I know, I'm quite a way away from the actual antennas that transmit these things across the UK. If you've got yourself a pager, and you think, hang on a minute, a pager in the 2020s, what are we using pagers for? Well, paging systems are still in use. They've been around since the early 70s, and they developed into the 80s and 90s and continued. Even though we've got mobile telephones, there are many users who still use pagers. Doctors, solicitors, fire brigade service, lifeboat crews, to name but a few. And these paging systems are also inside of vehicles now. So some ambulance systems still maintain in the UK these paging systems, and they basically get their information up on the screen on the dashboard where the next casualty is, etc., next job. So all this information is being transmitted nationally, which means if you've got the right software and you've got the right receiving equipment, you can get these displayed on your screen at home from around the UK. I can receive POCSAG messages here from Manchester. I'm on the south coast, but I'm getting the messages for Manchester, the east coast, the west coast, down in Cornwall, all over the UK, because they're sent out nationally, not just for the area that they're intended. Some of the information that's actually transmitted on here and actually can be seen on your screens is very confidential, very private. So I'm not going to go into exact detail, but the type of things, the messages that are transmitted, like I say, are messages to ambulances. You know, there may be a person who's fallen over somewhere, possibly having a heart attack, and they've got to attend. There could be a fire somewhere. There could be a remote station, like a server station, a computer system, and it needs to alert the engineer that there's a piece of equipment failure. You'll get those messages as well. The big TV companies like Sky and NBC, they use these systems quite a bit, and if they've got their video files hosted on a server and the server fails and they can't show it on the TV, they get messages sent out saying that these things can't be not available at the moment. Things like transplant crews being called to hospitals and things like that, lifeboat crews, fire brigade crews, and on a more of a lighter note, bird spotters. What's a bird spotter got to do with POCSAG? Well, there are subscription services out there where you can actually subscribe if you're a twitcher, a bird spotter, and if you've got an interest in, really avid interest in finding rare birds, there is a system out there that alerts the bird watchers that there has been a rare bird spotted somewhere in the UK. So you might get the velvet scooter might appear. Might have been seen on some reservoir in the UK, and it'll give the location, and all the bird spotters will jump in their cars and off they go to have a look at this velvet scooter, which is a type of duck bird feathered thing. Not being a twitcher myself, but yeah, so that's the type of messages that will appear on here. Again, it's mind blowing what is actually being passed through the airways in this, in the 2020s. Why we're not using mobile phones. And the reason we're not using mobile phones and we're still using this system is in some remote parts of the UK, the telephone system is still not reliable, and the telephone system can go down. These are RF signals. They will still get through. So they've maintained this system, and it's still used by many operatives. POCSAG is the name of the third-party decoding software. And here is an example screenshot of it with the confidential information blanked out. On a less confidential note, another program I use is MMSSTV, which stands for Makoto Mori Slow Scan Television. Now, slow scan TV is used in the amateur world. It's used on the HF bands, for instance on 7 megs and 14 megs, etc. You can transmit, the amateurs can transmit pictures like their QSL cards, etc., or of their local area, normally with their call sign on, and they transmit it in a data format, which can be decoded, and it's a slow scan TV, and an image will appear slowly. This is also used by the International Space Station, and the astronauts on board regularly fly over in their orbits and whilst transmitting slow scan TV from the space station. They have special events going on, and recently I've picked up they were doing a series of helicopter shots, which I'll show you one in a minute. MMSTV, Mako Mori Slow Scan Television, and a screenshot of the MMSSTV program showing the image downloaded from the International Space Station. Another piece of useful software is something called JAERO, JAERO, JAERO as I pronounce it. ACARS, we've all heard of ACARS, possibly those who have listened to aircraft bands. Again, aircraft monitoring, big hobby in its own. But there used to be some like data burst signals, very strong indeed. And these were signals that are being sent to and from aircraft down to base stations. They could be just saying about arrival times. It could be about saying about amount of fuel on board, passengers, etc. It was just data from the aircraft or going up to the aircraft. Well, this was in the aircraft band in the 130 meg area. There are still some there. There's still some active, but majority now moving away and using the Iridium satellite systems. Now, the Iridium satellite system itself is a commercial system. Satellites that are located around the world in geostationary orbit. So they're probably 30,000 kilometers away. But with a simple patch antenna, which is like a little square antenna, I've got one mounted on my shed roof at the moment on a little metal dish. You can pick up these signals. They're up in the 1.5 gigahertz range, or the L band. And lots of data is being sent down from them. Now, if you use JAERO, you can actually pick up the downlinks to the aircraft from the ground stations. The ground stations are sending up signals to the satellites. Excuse me. Satellites are sending the information back down to the aircraft, and that is what you're picking up using this system. And again, it's ACARS information. You know, if an aircraft, even right down in South America, as far as that, you can pick up information on the aircraft's on the ground ready to take off, all his fuel details, his trim settings, etc. So yeah, a lot of data, a lot of technical details, weather forecasts and that again for the airports they're going to, wind conditions, any obstructions around the airport like cranes and things because building work's going on, lots of warning messages and that come up. So that's one thing you can actually pick up using JAERO. JAERO, otherwise known as Java Aero. Here is a screenshot of JAERO showing the top left hand corner there. You've got the bandwidth, which you can change manually. On the far right hand side you've got the constellation showing up, showing you're receiving the signal well, and the information comes up. Click on the little drawing of the aeroplane and it'll take you to another web page which will give you the full history of the aircraft you're monitoring and its flight details. Now, I mentioned Inmarsat. They're a commercial company. There's their logo. Their satellites look like this, and they've got them all around the actual globe. The SDRplay is capable of picking up the downlinks on 1.5 megs using this small patch antenna. Another third-party piece of software is called SCYTALE, SCYTALE. It's an SDTC decoder. And this is basically similar to ACARS, but the maritime version. So the maritime business, commercial world, has signals being sent out to it all across the Atlantic down to, and again, you with the satellites, you can pick them up all around the world, different areas. I point to the Atlantic satellite, and I'm picking up everything from the southwest America, the western side, right across to the Indian Ocean and the whole Atlantic. So it's a big coverage, and you can get again navigation warnings, things like the Panama Canal, you know, might have a speed restrictions because the humpback whales are mating. Really strange things. You get iceberg notifications, and great thing about it is it has a map, so you can actually chart on that map, click a button and you can chart to see on the map where those restrictions are. It could be there's war games going on off of Algeria. There could be pirates detected off of Somalia. Be on the lookout, warnings. There could be, there's one come up the other day about the navigation warning where they found the sunken Argentinian submarine, and it told you where that was, and you know, it told you basically to keep away from that area. NASA, when they fire their missiles and their rockets and they're doing space launches, it tells you the restricted areas in the Atlantic because in case their parts of the rocket come back down into the Atlantic, so don't like more up there. Space debris arrives into the Pacific Ocean most days, and it tells you where the space debris is falling. So yeah, a lot of information out there. I mean, it's like mind blowing to what you can actually hear. That's just a few examples. That's just one thing you can do with it. You can also pick up something called LES messages, which are Land Earth Station, LES. Now, Land Earth Station messages, now you're getting into the fringe of personal data again. These are basically text messages or emails sent from people to other people on board ships or on land bases. And they might just be coded, encrypted bits of information for a bit of equipment. They could be personal messages. They could be merchants asking a ship what provisions they want when they dock in 2 or 3 days' time. You've got to be careful because they say they are a bit sensitive and the information contained within them. But they are decoded and come up in clear English or clear language. There are about 6 different stations that I've found that transmit these messages. Ground stations that send it up and down to the satellite. So whatever maritime industry is subscribed to whatever system, but you can pick all these up. Now, if they do come down in French or Dutch, you just cut, copy, paste, stick them into Google Translate, and you get a clear translated message. It comes up on there. So again, absolutely mind-blowing that you can access this data in this modern world. You think it would all be secure and encrypted. People don't realise that sometimes their text messages or their emails are not private. So again, you know, there will be an end slide which will reiterate that a little bit later. SCYTALE STDC decoder, and this is a screenshot of part of it, what it looks like. So I hope that's been a bit of an insight into the world of radio, expanded your mind a little. It did shock me to a degree, as I say, the mind-blowing side of things again, that this information today was available. I'll go back 30 years. Yeah, I remember you can pick up the police, you could pick up the fire brigade, you could pick up phone calls, analog. When people had mobile phones originally, they were analog, and you could pick up people's phone calls. You know, but today, 30 years on, you wouldn't think that would be possible. You think the comms would be more secure. But using something like an SDR RSP1A, you know, which is relatively cheap, £99 or less, free software, you can still pick up this sensitive information. I haven't really touched upon the digital modes. Now, we talked about analog earlier, and we were saying that everything's gone over to digital. Well, there's a piece of software which I've not covered here called DSDPLUS, and DSDPLUS will allow you to pick up the majority and a vast majority of digital signals. So all those little blurps and blips and funny sounds you hear on the bands and the VHF and UHF, etc., you can decode them. Again, there's a lot of data and a lot of information out there. DSDPLUS is a free piece of software. It doesn't take long to install it and get it going. That's for another time. There are other software out there as well. Now, the ones I've spoken about are all free to download. Now, there are others, such as TEKMANOID. TEKMANOID is a maritime decoder and LES signals. It's a little bit better front-end user interface. It looks better, and it's probably will decode more. I've had no problems with the system I'm using. It does seem to decode most of the signals. But looking on the internet, the TEKMANOID software is a little bit more accurate, maybe, and a little bit more precise, and a little bit more user-friendly front end. But other than that, it's about I think it's about $55. You have to contact their TEKMANOID admin, and they will send you the link to the software because you just can't download it. But it's a good piece of software. But if you're just dipping your finger in, dipping your toe in, having a look at this decoding world, then maybe stick with the free one, see how you get on, and if you want more, then look to upgrade to the TEKMANOID system. But the software's out there. Enjoy the hobby. Again, this will be a slide coming up about privacy and confidentiality. But stay safe, stay well. This has been Enthusiastic Steve. Mind blown with all the things that I've been picking up recently. All the best. 73s.